Hello, everyone. Welcome back. And to those of you who just joined us, welcome. We're moving on to round two of our virtual program. So we will get things started with our panel on cyber poetics. We have two speakers, Jesse Fowler and Calvin Olson. And just as a quick reminder to our presenters and audience, presenters, you will have 15 minutes to present. I will give you a 2-minute warning at the 13-minute mark, and we will have a 10-minute Q&A session where audience and panelists, you are free to discourse. All right, you're free to engage in the chats or unmute yourself during the Q&A period. All right, so we will go ahead and get started with Jesse Fowler. So Jesse, I will read your biographical statement, and then the floor will be yours. All right, so Jesse Fowler holds an MPS in Global Development from Cornell University, an MPA in Public Management from the Paul H. O'Neill School of Public and Environmental Affairs at Indiana University Bloomington, and a BA in English from Biola University. Fowler specializes in public administration, economics, and education. He is also an avocational poet published in both English and Spanish. Fowler has been invited to speak at top global institutions with subject matter ranging from foreign affairs, Cornell University, and theoretical physics, University of Cambridge, to generative artificial intelligence, University College London, and poetry, University of Oxford. Jesse, thank you for being here. You may begin.
Hi, thank you, Noah. Let me share my screen, if that's okay.
Yes.
Recording in progress.
Okay. There we go. Okay. Okay. Can you all see the presentation okay?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, wonderful. Okay, so hello, my name is Jesse, and thank you, Noah, for the invitation to speak here today. And thank you also for attending this presentation, to all of you watching. Today we'll learn how to connect poetry to statistical analysis, two seemingly different fields. More specifically, we're going to talk about a method used in natural language processing, information retrieval, and machine learning. This method involves the statistical scheme term frequency inverse document frequency. During my presentation, you may hear me say TF, which is short for term frequency, IDF, which is short for inverse document frequency, and TF-IDF, which is short for term frequency inverse document frequency. TF-IDF is the product of the two statistics, TF and IDF. TF regards how often a given term appears in a given document. IDF regards how rarely a given term appears across the document collection, so as to decrease the importance of a given term as the number of documents in which it shows up increases. The product of these two statistics helps us to measure the importance attached to given terms within a given document, relative to the document collection. I first learned about TF-IDF while interning for NASA in grad school. I applied TF-IDF to different goals and objectives for NASA when compared to what we'll talk about today, but my hope is that after today, you'll begin to see how what is relevant in a more quantitative environment, like at NASA, can also be relevant in a more qualitative environment, such as in an English class. While my training is in the programming language R, I utilized exploratory for this presentation. Instead of R, which can have a rather steep learning curve, I utilized exploratory, which is more user-friendly and can work with R, because I want the introductory skills that we'll learn today to be accessible for those with quantitative backgrounds, but also and perhaps especially those with qualitative backgrounds, like my fellow poets. To begin, we need to first decide which documents we'll analyze. The document collection is called the corpus. I went ahead and chose for us which documents will make up the corpus. We'll analyze a collection of Edgar Allan Poe's poems entitled Poems of Later Life. Poe's poems of later life are freely accessible from Project Gutenberg. To access the text, you can scan the QR code on the slide. For those unaware, Project Gutenberg is a digital library that provides free ebooks, and fun fact, the founder of Project Gutenberg, Michael Hart, invented the ebook in 1971. There are a total of 19 poems or documents in the corpus. The chosen poems are 1, the Raven, 2, the Bells, 3, Eulalume, 4 to Helen, 5 Annabelle Lee, 6 a Valentine, 7 an Enigma, 8 to my mother, 9 for Annie, 10 to F, 11 to Francis S. Osgood, 12 El Dorado, 13 Eulalie, 14 A Dream Within a Dream, 15 to Mary Louise Shue, 16 another poem also called To Mary Louise Shue, 17 The City and the Sea, 18 The Sleeper, and 19 Bridal Ballad. You may have noticed that poems 15 and 16 are both titled To Mary Louise Shue. For our analysis, we'll refer to poem 15 as To Mary Louise Shue 1 and poem 16 as To Mary Louise Shue 2. But first, we need to prepare the text data for text mining. Text mining is a process that analyzes large sets of text data, but with algorithms to extract information, patterns, and relationships, especially those that are latent within the set of text data. On this screen, we see that set of text data, i.e. the corpus, that I have imported into Exploratory. The file is a CSV text file local to my laptop. The poems are ordered the same as they are by Project Gutenberg. Next, I wrangled the text, which is just a fun way to say that I made it so that none of the names were too long to read on the screen. The names are the poem's titles. After that, I tokenized the text. To tokenize a text is to break it down. Therefore, tokenization dismantles the text into words, phrases, sentences, and the like. For our analysis, we'll especially focus on terms. Terms are words taken from each document or poem. The tokens are then placed into cells, with each token occupying one cell per row. You may notice that some characters are not English characters. This is okay. It won't significantly affect the output. Non-English characters can appear when the text is transferred from Project Gutenberg to the local CSV text file, and then from the local CSV text file to Exploratory. Regardless, on this slide, we see columns for not only name and token, but also sentence ID and document ID. The sentence ID is simply the ordered sentence within which the token is found. For example, all tokens with a sentence ID of 1 are found in the poem's first sentence. The document ID is the poem, as ordered by Project Gutenberg. For example, document ID 1 refers to The Raven because The Raven is the first poem in Project Gutenberg's collection. Next, we can see on this chart the total number of tokens or words within each document or poem. For example, we can see that The Raven has the most at 570. However, we don't want to keep all tokens gathered. Some tokens, especially stop words, do not add value. They are noisy. We want to clean up this noise so that the data are less messy and easier to understand in the final analysis. Stop words are terms that do not help us to identify a document. For example, the token chamber, which we'll see later on, helps us to identify the Raven, but other tokens like and, of, the, and to are too generic to help us identify the document. As a result of removing stop words, the unique value of tokens will decrease from 1,470 down to 1,390. Next, we'll look at the pivot table and then clean up the data so that it is alphabetized. Alphabetized means that the text data are neither alphanumeric nor numeric. The text data are only alphabetic. This step is perhaps a bit precautionary in case any numbers, for example, enter the set of text data when the text is transferred from Project Gutenberg to the local CSV text file. After we alphabetize the set of text data, we should see an output like this, which shows only the alphabet tokens. After ensuring only the alphabet tokens, we want to work with and mutate the text data. We want to conduct stemming. Stemming is the process of regressing words to the basic form that is common to all inflected variants. For example, after alphabetizing the set of text data, one of our tokens is distinctly, found in sentence 3 of document 1, The Raven. Distinctly is not the most basic form of the token. The most basic form is distinct, which we now see as tokenized from sentence 3 of document 1. Stemming helps to make sure that there is no double counting. Now, after stemming, we see that bell, singular, is the most common token, whereas it used to be bells, plural. Next, we want to construct n-grams, which in natural language processing is to concatenate words next to each other. This falls within text mining, which involves the discovery of latent information. Monogram and unigram are both an n-gram token created from one word unlinked to other words. Bigram and digram are both an n-gram token created from two words linked. trigram is an n-gram token created from 3 words linked. For our set of text data, we only see mono and bigrams like door and midnight dreary found in document 1. Midnight dreary is latent because the human mind does not observe midnight and dreary as concatenate but separate terms. The computer identifies them as concatenate with greater value added from the concatenate term than the separate terms. Admittedly, though, knowing which terms to concatenate can be difficult for the computer at times, and so error can occur. Caution should be exercised when noticing concatenated tokens like bell observably concatenated here. It is not entirely obvious that the bigram bell adds more value than the product of 2 times the value added from the unigram bell. Regardless, to stay within boundary, which is to say, to only connect words within the same sentence, we must select the document ID as well as the sentence ID when constructing n-grams. This concludes our preparing the text data for text analysis. Now that we have prepared the text data for text analysis, we'll quantify the qualitative, that is, we will calculate the TF-IDF values and unearth the most important terms per document. As a refresher, TF-IDF is a weighting mechanism that calculates the importance of each term for each document by increasing the importance based on the term frequency while decreasing the importance based on the document frequency. Here we see the TF-IDF values per term analyzed. However, when we ask the computer to calculate the TF-IDF values, we lose the names of the different documents. We want this information back so that our output is easier to understand in the final analysis. Otherwise, how do we know for certain that document 1 is the Raven and not any of the other 18 poems analyzed in the corpus? We don't. To get back the document names, we create a branch data frame from the main data frame. The branch data frame will branch out from the step right before our losing the names. Since we only need to identify each document ID according to its respective name, the branch data frame only needs to include those 2 columns, but not before removing any duplicated rows so that we keep only unique rows. Now that we have the name column back, it's important to notice that it's only back within the branch data frame. To get it back within the main data frame, we must have the main data frame target the branch data frame, so that the data observable within the branch data frame but unobservable within the main data frame also become observable within the main data frame. This process is called joining. After joining, we now have the name column back within the main data frame. Now that we've returned to the main data frame, let's continue where we left off. After asking the computer to calculate the TF-IDF values, we see 3 new columns. The count per doc column indicates the term frequency value per term. That is, it indicates how many times each term appears in each document. For example, we see that the term chamber in row 8 appears 11 times in document 1, the Raven. However, if the term appears in only 1 document across the corpus, then it doesn't help us to find similarities like patterns and relationships between all documents in the final analysis. For example, we ought to filter out the term nevermore because it only appears in document 1 even if 11 times. Therefore, we want to filter the count of docs metric to include only values greater than 1. The count of docs column dictates the document frequency value per term, that is, it indicates how many documents a given term appears in. For example, the same term, chamber, appears in 2 documents, 11 times in document 1, the Raven, and if we search for the data, 2 more times in document 18, the Sleeper. The TF-IDF column indicates the TF-IDF value for each term per document. For example, in document 1, the term chamber has a TF-IDF value of 1.996. A lower TF-IDF value indicates a term that is more frequent across the corpus, whereas a higher TF-IDF value indicates a term that is less frequent across the corpus. For example, the TF-IDF value of chamber is high, indicating that it is perhaps common in 1 or 2 documents, but not the corpus at large, which we know to be true. Now let's see how many unique tokens there are per document, minus stopwords. For example, we see that document 1, the Raven, has 161 unique tokens. However, let's look more closely at the data. We now see how many times each of document 1's 161 unique tokens appear in the Raven. For example, we see that in the chart, only one unique token appears a total of 11 times in the poem. Based on our analysis of the table before, we know that this term is chamber. Last, let's return to the table. Let's filter the TF-IDF column to keep only the top and bottom 20 tokens. First, let's look at the bottom 20. We see a pattern. The same words are repeated. They are now, night, heaven, heart, eye, and soul. When writing a critical theory paper, for example, an English student can utilize these data to understand that while these terms are not important to identify any one poem, they do nevertheless help to understand the meaning behind the corpus at large. We can verify that these terms are not important to identify any one document because of their low TF-IDF values, like now, which has a TF-IDF value of 0.214. On the other hand, with the top 20, we see 29 tokens, only 3 of which, fancy, leave, and roll, are duplicated. When writing a critical theory paper, an English student can utilize these data to understand that these terms are important to identify the documents in which they appear. That is, they help less to understand the meaning behind the corpus at large, but more to help to understand the meaning behind individual poems. We can verify that these terms are important to identify their respective documents because of their high TF-IDF values. For example, fancy, which has a TF-IDF value of 1.444. Thank you for attending this presentation. Feel free to email me any thoughts, questions, or epiphanies you might have, and also feel free to scan the QR code on this slide to connect with me on LinkedIn. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jesse. That was 2 minutes exactly. Okay, great. Fascinating. Yeah. All right. So on to Calvin Olson. So Calvin Olson is a senior lecturer in the English department at Ohio State